Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. What is going on, Chip? What's going on, everybody out there in the cryptocurrency following community here on the chain? Man, lots of stuff going on. We have an amazing guest with you guys tonight. Let's see if you can guess it. Oh, it's in the title. That's right. It's right there in the title. None other than Tony Edward from Thinking Crypto. We're going to talk about uh, Bitcoin, and that's about it. No, we're gonna get into XRP. We're gonna talk about AMM. We're gonna talk about Ripple. We're gonna talk about Ripple's buddies over there at the SEC because we know how close they are. You know, they get to talk to each other and see each other pretty often. And we're gonna dig into a lot more. There's so many things going on. We might even talk to Tony about some of the interviews that he's been doing because he's crushing it. So, Chip, you're ready to kick this thing off. Let's kick it off, and then let's do the introduction all over again when we bring Tony on stage.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome to On the Chain. Everybody drop where you're coming in from. And without further delay, let's bring him in. The man who has been crushing it for some time now. The biggest hustler in the crypto space. And I'm not talking about XRP. I'm talking about the crypto space. He's everywhere. None other than, here we go. Bring him in. Let's do it. And what is going on here, Jeff? There we go. Bam. There he is. Tony.
There he is.
What's going on, Tony?
Hey, guys. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you, man.
Chip, you didn't add Rumble.
I don't know how to add Rumble.
No, you just add it up there on the top. You didn't add it. Let me edit. I'm going to have to add it now. It's going to be a little bit late.
But that's all right. That's what I told you before. I said I didn't.
No, I didn't know you didn't add it to the top. You didn't add the Rumble edition, and then it goes live. So Tony, Rumble's going to be late. Too bad for Rumble.
Yeah, whatever. It's some secret.
Too bad for you guys over there in Rumble. Welcome.
Tony, he has a secret handshake.
Welcome, Tony Edwards. Tony Edwards, everybody.
Anyway, listen. Now let's talk about some of the. So you had Aaron on from Prometheus today. So what was some like one of the big takeaways from that interview today that you did?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I interviewed Aaron Kaplan of Prometheum. He's the co-founder and co-CEO. And as many folks may know, he and Prometheum have been working closely with the SEC to try to get that special broker dealer license. So let's try to say that 10 times fast. And unfortunately, he seems to be the only one who knows how to do this, right? And seems to be getting special favor from the SEC. The interview went well overall. They launched their Ethereum custody today, and it was their first product that they've launched. The industry has called them out on how could they have gotten approvals when they didn't even launch a platform or anything. They didn't have a business up and running. So, all of these things brings up a lot of questions as to what's happening here behind the scenes. And, I asked them like, hey, will you list XRP, given that, you have the securities license, you can list anything. You don't have to worry about anything. And I mentioned a ruling by Judge Torres, but he kind of balked and he's like, I don't know, the lawsuit and so forth. So I'm like, what? Why would you not list it? So it just shows some bias. And I think, working closely with the SEC, I don't know if they're giving him things to say and do and whatever it may be, but it comes across that way.
Yeah, I can see how that might. And I know he was getting a lot of flack in the community, especially when that kind of came out that like, wait a minute, where do we go for Prometheus? Is it Prometheum? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said Prometheus. I think that was from a movie or something. What?
Oh yeah. The Aliens movie.
Like a movie or something. I was like, you said Prometheum. I'm like, okay, I was close. Not close. I was semi-close, but we had the chance to meet, even though briefly it was September 29th. It was the proper party at Ripple. And we had a chance to meet, and Tony was mobbed by, there was like 10 people deep around him, and it was just like some rock star. And I look over, I'm like, man, who is that? I'm like, it's none other than Tony. And everyone's like, Tony, trying to get pictures of them. And I had to grab Tony. I'm like, dude, we kind of just like give a little brace. I'm like, hey man, good to meet you in person. And then we snapped this quick pic, and that was it. Tony was like gone. I don't know what happened. We didn't really get a chance, but it was cool to meet in person. Just
very cool.
Just to kind of see, that sort of like personality, like in person, like that whole thing was kind of cool. But that was a great party. I mean, what was like one of the biggest things that like you had a way when you went up there, you thought like, hey, this is gonna be cool because X, but what was like the takeaway when the party ended? Like what were your like big sort of takeaways or kind of things that maybe something you didn't expect that happened there?
Sure. I didn't expect that amount of people to show up. I was blown away by the lines. I mean, the line wrapped around the block to get into the venue. I was like, holy shit. Like, oh, sorry, I'm cursing on your show.
You can say that here. We're fine.
Okay. And I was really blown away by the amount of people, and people flew in from all different parts of the world for this. And, it's really interesting because you have these communities built around these tokens. So it's incredible. And it makes me think about like Metcalfe's law, network effects, and the network becomes stronger as there's more participants. And that's so incredible because of the internet, but now blockchain, where, you can benefit from being a token holder. So it's just incredible. And I was thinking along those lines, like, wow, so many people, they're all XRP holders. And despite, all the issues with the lawsuit, you still had this amount of people still holding, still participating, and still excited, right? Because they didn't have to show up. They say, oh, whatever, I'm going to stay home. And it was like a rainy day in New York. So yeah, it was incredible to see that.
Yeah, it was rainy, and it was like a misty sort of a rain, and it did not deter one person. I mean, it was like, and if you know a New York block, it was probably 5 New York blocks deep. That's how crazy it was. When I saw somebody shot that one shot of like at the back of the line and all the way up, and I'm like, went on forever, and it was like sped up like 10 times. It was pretty incredible. Also, too, it was funny. I was actually at the bar, and I had asked, we were trying to find out who the special act was going to be. And so I asked the bartender, I'm like, hey man, do you know who's playing tonight? He's like, yeah, Lenny Kravitz. I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't think you were supposed to know that. And then Garlinghouse got up there and said, thank you everybody for spoiling the special. I think it was, because at that point I might have said like, you know what it is that? So, and next thing you know, everybody knew it was, Lenny. But I love Lenny Kravitz. I had the chance to see him in Miami, like in a very small setting, and met him, and he's really cool. He lived in Miami for a bunch of years, and he was just it was one of the best shows I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I love Lenny. I've been listening to Lenny for a long time. I play guitar, so I've tried to play some of his songs, and my wife also is a fan of Lenny. So it was great that was a pleasant surprise. I didn't know, the bartender didn't tell me anything, so it was a nice surprise.
I was shocked.
But the one thing I was disappointed about that night, this guy named Jeff didn't show up. He skipped on us. He went on some party and somewhere. I don't know what happened, but
skipping. He just skipped again. It's all over the place.
Skipping town.
Put you there. Why weren't you at the proper party? Everybody met somebody. They're like, "Where's Jeff?"
Everybody wanted to know. No, it was well, as we were talking about before, it was my birthday, and there was the pre-party. Everybody gave a nice birthday song shout out, so that was really cool. Chip actually brought everybody on live, and then everyone said happy birthday, and then they recorded a song and sent it as well, that was pretty nice.
Yeah,
that was very cool. So I was gonna go, and then we had a party planned over here, and people were coming in from out of town, so that was great.
Yeah, people came from out of town, and I'm sorry, Jeff's not here. He's in New York at the proper party. So there you go. I was looking
for boxes of clarity, so in the closet. So that also happens.
What else you have? You got something, Jeff, before we get into this other next subject here?
I mean, we're talking about all these things, and nothing more about the proper party because I wasn't there. So I can't talk much about that, but it was, it's interesting. I'm looking at the market. I'm looking at how the market's trending upwards. I'm looking at Bitcoin going over the $44,000 mark. I don't think Bitcoin's rallied enough to pull the rest of the market up, but everything's in green, just not XRP. XRP sitting there at that 51 cent mark, not doing much. Solana is blowing up. I was just looking at the trend on Solana where it started back in 2020 in the dollar plus space, and it pulled back to about 25, and now it's up to about 101. Had been its high over $240, I think up to 247. But there's so much excitement like all over the place. A lot of amazing projects. And I'm noticing you got those pillows behind you over there. You got Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, and that looks like Doge, but I can't tell what that is on the left.
Oh, Cardano?
Cardano.
Is that Cardano?
Jeff.
Oh, yeah, it is Cardano. There we go.
I couldn't tell what it was either. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, there we go. I'm looking at the Cardano logo here, and that is Cardano. Look at that. Where's your Solana pillow? Where's your on the chain pillow?
It broke. It fell off the bed. Yeah.
It went down. It kind of
It
crashed.
went down. It went down and crashed.
Oh man.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about this here. So you were gonna get tons of hate for this, but you always want to keep it real. You have no emotional or religious connections.
Oh, you're throwing them under the bus right away. Here we go.
No. Tony and I got into this a little bit, so that's why he said, "Hey, let's talk about the show." But I think it's time for Chris Larsen to distance himself from Ripple as much as possible. In 2022, he donated to Greenpeace to launch a campaign to lobby for the change of Bitcoin code. By the way, Tony, where did that go?
What do you mean? Where did it go?
What ended up happening with that? Like nothing happened with that.
But it doesn't matter, Chip, because the optics is what mattered.
Okay, so the fact is he was trying to change the code. Do you know why he was trying to change the code? What he was trying to particularly change?
I think, well, Greenpeace supports ESG initiatives and environmental protection. So his thing has always been, let's move Bitcoin to a more energy efficient way instead of proof of work. But the problem is you own a competing blockchain and a token, and you're getting sued by the SEC. And that type of, once again, he could have donated and done this privately, right? But he made it a point to do a press release and do this big PR push. And when he tweeted out about it, he said, I apologize ahead of time for the Ripple PR team, because he knew what he was doing. And it was a lot of heat. And I'm not saying that just even from personally, I've spoken to some congressmen and people in DC and so forth in advocacy group. They were not happy about this. It was just horrible optics, because once again, you have a competing blockchain. So if you were just some random dude who was in the Silicon Valley and you have money and you did this, it may not have come across as bad, but you have a competing blockchain and you're trying to, kind of take a shot at Bitcoin when the industry has been fighting to change a lot of narratives, false narratives, I should say, about Bitcoin energy use and so forth. So that's the perspective where I'm coming from. And some context, I'm bullish on XRP. I'm a Ripple equity holder. So I'm not saying this as just some random dude on the internet. I'm looking at it from an investor standpoint. So when I see things like this, I'm like, really, man, did you have to do that? You know what I mean? And I think maybe if I didn't hear from a congressman or other folks who are lobbying in DC and so forth about how this came across, maybe my opinion might have been different. But then they were like, yeah, like, come on, dude. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, and I honestly thought too. I remember we covered it at the time. I thought it was like it was an oddball thing to do, right? It was just, I mean, from the standpoint of you're not going to change Bitcoin from proof of work, and then how is the change even going to occur? So to me, I think to your point though, it sounded a little bit more like a publicity stunt, like a high profile publicity stunt. It's like, hey, we're going to move, the Empire State Building to a different location. Oh, okay, but is that going to happen? Probably not.
Right.
So it did kind of have this aura of a criticism because of the proof of work, because of the energy consumption leading back to ESG. Jeff, I think you and I probably, I sort of remember us kind of going off about that a little bit too, as far as that goes. I don't know. Do you remember those? We had chatted about it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about, what their motivation is. And, we talk a lot about the motivation of some of the key people over at Ripple in terms of where their political allegiance is. And, so he kind of falls in line with that whole narrative, right? And so then coming out, how they try to promote XRP also. Over the past years, they talk about how it's eco-friendly, or what do they talk about? Carbon neutral. I don't know. They throw these statements around. And then they immediately want to target and single out Bitcoin. I don't know that they're competitive blockchains. I don't think they're competing with one another, because I think they have two distinct use cases. I look at Bitcoin more as a store of value, and I don't know if it's ever going to fundamentally become a payment solution, although they're trying. And then you have XRP, or the XRPL, which is a great mechanism to help move all currencies and converting currency, if as things develop. And there's a lot more potential with the XRPL. So different use cases, and then Bitcoin moves seamlessly across the XRPL if you spend the bits. So there's all of that. Trying to look at what his overall motivation is, and I do think also I would agree it's more of a PR blitz, and even if he's going to preface it and said, oh, our PR people are going to hate me for this, or they're going to have their work cut out for them, he's already making it a PR thing. So it's like right out of the gate, he's like prefacing his PR blunder as almost just pre-planned. Here's my plea. I'm going to pre-announce my blunder, and then I'm going to say the blunder. That just doesn't make sense that overall, but I think it fits his narrative, fits his character, fits what they try to push, XRP and the XRPL as being, trying to draw some attention away from Bitcoin maybe. But I don't think that's the way to do it.
Right.
I think we need to see more outwardly focus on investing in other companies that are building on the XRPL. If you care about building the XRPL platform and getting more on it, that's where you need to focus.
Yeah.
Outside of Ripple's going to do their own thing. That's why Chip and I talk a lot about that segmentation between, Ripple, the company, and XRP. I mean, do you think, beyond this PR blunder, you're also saying that he should step away from the company? Not, they should be distancing themselves from him.
Yeah, and at the bottom of my post, I mentioned like I'm confident in Brad Garlinghouse and David Schwartz based on the things they've done and their interactions. I think Chris is, look, he's on the board. Obviously, he's a chairman of the board, but he's doing all these things. He'll do one-off interviews here and there, talk about XRP. He'll do these political things, PR things. These just random things which don't seem to align with the company. He's almost like doing his own thing, and it's pseudo involved in the company. He's not 100% like committed like Brad and David, right? When they're talking, when you're listening to them, they're focused on Ripple and XRP. He's doing other things, kind of like the PR stuff, right? And I think this situation with the XRP unauthorized access, if you want to call it that, shines a light on that focus. You're a billionaire. You have access to resources more than any of us, right? And all types of technology and so forth. Your company, from an optics standpoint, has acquired a custody firm, and you're getting hacked, right? Or whatever. And it just creates bad headlines. So it's an optics thing. And once again, I'm a Ripple equity holder through Link2 and XRP holder. So I'm looking at it like, come on, man, right? Like if he was some other dude and he wasn't connected to company and there wasn't, all these other activities, I wouldn't probably care because, he's not connected in that way. But he is. And I think there needs to be some distance here if these type of activities are going to continue, and he's going to do his own personal political PR and donations to this, and that could affect, Ripple and XRP.
Right. And wasn't he also behind the cameras in San Francisco? Didn't he pay for like surveillance and stuff? Like these things get kind of like very Black Mirror type of scenarios. Like, right. And when it's attached to the company, like you can't get outside that, right?
Right. It's in today's world. No, man. Like maybe back in the 90s where there was no internet where information can be spread, and you can readily find things and say, hey, wait, you donated to this or you did this. You can't do that now. So, look, I'm not trying to get anybody fired or whatever. It's just like,
sure, Tony.
like, dude, you're a billionaire already. You're the co-founder. Nobody can take that away from you. But you are the chair of the board. I don't know. Like,
do you think he's damaging Ripple though? And is he damaging their brand by doing that? Is he drawing more focus to the brand, or is he just the billionaire? Chairman of the board, that is going to say what he says, and the board's the board. The board has some say over what the CEO and the rest of the C-suite do. But is he that relevant overall to the functionality of the company? And by him doing this, is it going to cause damage to their brand image and their growth potential and their financial growth potential and this would go to anyone who's holding shares of Ripple. I don't know that it impacts XRP one way or the other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and maybe to your point, it sways more to the equity side of things versus XRP. I think XRP, to a certain degree, it does affect it because of the speculation layer of markets, right? And speculation layer of crypto. Once this news broke, you guys saw what happened, right? Tons of tweets, tons of headlines. This person's reporting this person's reporting that. And then, all of a sudden people started to panic. What happened? So it just creates unnecessary noise. And, you try to mitigate those things as much as possible. And it's easy when you have a figure that you can point to. Oh, see, these guys, I told you guys, these guys are scammers at Ripple. I told you. See, here's another example when some of those things may not be true, but unfortunately, we can't control all information online.
Yeah, and out of the box, it kind of came out that Ripple's wallet was compromised, and it was shoddy reporting from the beginning. But I think the reason it happened was because that wallet was named Ripple, and so I've actually seen some additional reporting. I saw something that you had actually reposted that they did sort of a little bit of analysis that wallet was connected. What was going on there? That's a little bit kind of odd.
Yeah, so a reporter from TechCrunch, she actually retweeted it, and the firm that went through the additional analysis, this is what they're alleging now, right? I don't have proof, and we'll need Ripple and Chris Larsen to come back and say, hey, no, that's false. But they're saying there's his wallets were connected to a main at Ripple wallet or something along those lines. I didn't get to read through all the details, but that's what they're essentially saying after doing a second round of analysis. But it could be false. So I want to make sure that's clear. If people listening, we need Ripple to confirm that.
Hey, on this kind of came out today. We saw Janet Yellen pontificating on a whole bunch of different things that she shouldn't be. Every time I see her, she kind of reminds me of like a Stalinist, with her haircut. She should. But anyhow, so she came out and she's focused on, Congress and cryptocurrency, and really looking at how Congress needs to step up and come up with some legislation to start regulating crypto.
We're getting line. We've been for 5 years now.
Yeah, we've been waiting a long time, and now all of a sudden Janet Yellen's like, you guys got to do your job. And we had the new Congress that came into session. We're like, now they're going to do something.
Yeah,
and here
I'm
we
sorry,
go.
Jeff. I didn't mean
to. Yeah, no, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that is very interesting. The timing is interesting because it's an election year, and could we see a pivot of the Biden administration on crypto? It's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it was also in direct contrast to what Gary Gensler has been saying. The rules are clear. There's no need for additional regulations. Now you have the Treasury Secretary coming out and saying, no, we need to regulate this, and Congress needs to act. I think that's a big signal, huge signal coming from her. And, could this be the catalyst that Patrick McHenry needs to rally the rest of the House to say, let's get the FIT bill through, let's get this out of the House. The Senate, it's its own beast, of course, but there's a couple bills in the Senate under Lummis and Gillibrand. Could those bills be merged, Lummis and Gillibrand's and the House bill? I don't know, the mixture of both. But most likely what's going to get pushed through first is the stablecoin bill. I think they're very concerned about that because they can't control the money that's going to stablecoins. We know they got the money machine. So that's the big threat to them, I think. One of the things I was talking to someone about today was in a way, they've almost curbed the Bitcoin issue where the capital that's going to Bitcoin is now going into an ETF. So it puts it under the equities buckets, and they know where the money's going and how much is going in. They got the tracker now, right? They can see what is happening. Before they couldn't, because you could buy Bitcoin and self-custody, and they're like, wait, who has it? Where is it going? Now it's a lot easier. And I think they would love to do that with stable coins. All these stablecoin issuers, you got to report to us how much you have in reserves, how many treasury bills, whatever you have in there, and all that jazz.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about Janet Yellen was it wasn't too long ago where she was saying the Treasury was going to then talk about what the new crypto rules were in craft. So it sounds like that she had a talking to. Somebody took her beyond the woodshed and said, hey, this is the new plan of attack, and I think you're kind of right. I mean, we see the border issue coming up strong, but the border bill is. I read through it. It's has nothing really to do, very little to do with the border. A lot of great stuff. Typical sort of pork that gets put in a bowl, in a bill like Ukraine type stuff. But it allocated very little. So I wonder if that, to your point, where they say, "Hey, we're doing something good for crypto," but then it really doesn't have much to do with crypto, and it's given more like Gensler more power in the SEC.
Or anything good.
Like the border bill is like, hey, if 5,000 people come in a day for 10, you can suspend the whole thing. You can suspend it for the emergency for anything. So it's like you can pass something through Congress, the president can say it's dead. So what's the point about doing something like that? So I wonder if that's what they're actually going to get into with the crypto bill. And what do you think about Gillibrand? And what do you think about her and who's the Republican? What's her name?
Lummis.
What do you think about their bill?
Lummis.
I think it's a solid bill. I think the FIT bill in the House is the better one. It's more comprehensive. But from what I've been hearing from the crypto advocacy groups who are talking to many of these lawmakers and politicians in DC, they think that once the bill comes out of the House, there could be a merging into a bigger bill that, for example, that has nothing to do with crypto, but they attach these things to it to help get it through. And it could be a merging of what Senator Lummis and Gillibrand have in the House bill. So it's to TBD, but they're anticipating that's the way to do it because not a lot gets through the Senate these days, and it may be attached to something else, some infrastructure bill or whatever. Yeah.
So this is the problem, right? So we look at, and that's I was bringing that other bill up. I've been looking for the link to the FIT bill, but if we bring these bills up, basically what happens. Because there doesn't seem to be an appetite on either side to further it. There definitely is not an appetite on the blue team side, right? They don't want to further anything positive to help grow the this innovative space for cryptocurrency or blockchain. They just seem to be very focused on things that won't help, right? So here we're talking about crypto asset Environmental Transparency Act, right? But thing is, it got to Senate. It's sitting in the Senate, and then we look at some of the co-sponsors. We have a Democrat from Oregon, this independent Bernie Sanders from Vermont, and Dianne Feinstein from California. This goes back to March and May of last year of 2023. So what happened here? This is at the 118th Congress, 2023-2024 time period. But what happens is that it just dies. All right. So it's introduced to Senate March. We see a co-sponsor added in May, and then nothing. It just sits there and nothing ever happens with them. And we're seeing this like bill after bill after bill that goes out. Now, I'm glad this didn't go anywhere because it's kind of, wasted bill, and it just caused more damage than good. But this just seems to be the theme. And then when there's a positive bill that comes down the pipeline, the same thing happens. You get discussion. Basically, what we saw with Maxine Waters, like with the Token Taxonomy Act in its heyday, gets in front of the Financial Services Committee. It got zero, just nothing, right? No discussion, just dies. And too many of these bills are just dying in Congress. Well, so it's where do we go? Like how do we get this bipartisan, FIT bill, this financial, what is it? Financial innovative technology for the 21st Century Act. Is it good, bad, indifferent?
I was just going to say, because you brought up a great point. Who was I talking to? I think Metalon Man or someone I interviewed recently. And he mentioned like exactly what you're saying with the Token Taxonomy Act happened in Q4, I think it was, or Q3 of last year, where Maxine Waters was the blocker and Patrick McKenney was pissed off. I don't know if you guys remember that, because they had an actual verbal agreement. But he said, was it Metalon Man? I forgot who told me about this, but essentially Maxine Waters got a call from the Biden administration, the White House, saying, no, don't do this.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think we've seen something we haven't seen before, and that's Yellen. And if Yellen is doing this, and she's a Biden administrative appointed person and someone with power coming out and making this statement, could they be pivoting because they're seeing that look, there's some pandering to be done here. We're going to get some crypto donations for the campaign coming up. We're going to get some voters because we saw with the presidential candidates, right? Vivek, Ron DeSantis, RFK, they were all saying, I'm pro crypto. Here's my plans, yada, yada. It came up in the debates. So, I know this sounds very optimistic. Possibly we may see a pivot, but I'm not holding my breath, of course.
Yeah, I think there's going to be too much holding them back, to even pivot in this short period of time to do anything monumental. And we're seeing, I think here's another example, so the FIT for the 21st century had 9 co-sponsors. Of the 9 co-sponsors, this bipartisan bill, how many D's do you see on there? 2. All right. So where's the pivot going to come from on the left side? That's where I find it interesting. I see that the pivot is going to be more regulation and more oppressive, and I think that's where Janet Yellen might be coming from. But there's another example of another bill, the FIT, the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century, got to Congress and it died over there. It shows the 7 actions, but what happened? It was introduced. It never goes beyond that, and this is what happens over and over and over again with any of this legislation. It's difficult, And then here's Janet Yellen coming out and making her statements.
Janet Yellen. I heard they're updating the name. They're changing it from the 21st century to the 22nd century, just to give a little bit of buffer there, because just in case, right? I mean, and they do it before they'll overpromise, underpromise, overdeliver, whatever, however it goes. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing with legislation. Now we've got Gary Gensler. Let's talk a little bit about the AMM, right? So that is interesting because now he's going after AMM.
That's right there. It's like a puppet. It's like a Muppet.
Left the old folks home, really. Let's say I think about. I mean, when I saw her, she was in a McDonald's or something ordering a burger, and she doesn't even come up to the counter. She was like she was like an old grandma, just trying to I don't know.
Here it is right here, though. Right, Treasury Secretary. She warns of crypto risk. Calls for crypto regulation.
She wants they want regulation, but they want to give Gary Gensler full on control, hammered. It's all securities, because I mean, it becomes a security if Congress passes it as a security. That's it. It becomes a security if it goes through the House and and of course Biden would sign something like that. But I don't know. There's the appetite, because I was listening on, I don't know where it was, but they were saying that 1 out of 4, I think it was John Deaton was on a panel. He was talking about 1 out of 4 people in the United States, voters, own cryptocurrency. So that's a pretty large voting block right now. And
getting big.
How much influence do you think, Tony, that it will have on this upcoming campaign, as far as whether you're pro, like we heard some of the candidates come out, they're pro crypto, especially RFK has been very pro, and then versus someone who's statistically been, or at least historically been, negative. What do you think that's going to do on the any outcome at all? Do you think it's going to have any effect?
I think it will. Now, certainly not the top ballot issue, by no means, right? We got the border, we got inflation, we got the economy. There's so much happening. But I think it's an additional item to not like the Biden administration, because it's like frustrating, right? And I think people are waking up to this, like, why are they not passing regulations? Why are all these lawsuits happening? Because this was kind of in a niche, in the corner, where it was like, oh, just crypto bros. But now you're seeing mainstream coverage of the debacles and the losses Gary Gensler is taking. And part of that is these big players coming in and issuing Bitcoin ETFs. And the reason they were able to do that was the SEC got called arbitrary and capricious. So all these narratives and bad optics for Gary Gensler are put out there. So I think people are awaking to what's happening behind the scenes. They're seeing maybe how the sausage is made, and oh, it's Biden and the administration's blocking it, and this guy Gary Gensler is kind of crazy. So I think it does play a factor. It will for me, even though it's not the top issue, but it's going to be down there that could sway me to say, oh, this guy's, I have X amount of money in crypto. I'm looking to make a return, but I can't because you got this crazy clown Gary Gensler out there, and Biden loves him. That could sway me a bit, right? To go against Biden.
Yeah. Well, also
it's more than that.
Yeah, I would. It's such a mess right now. I mean, 24 is going to be interesting, but also too this rules on the dealer trader seem a little bit weird. Now, what's really odd is for some reason Peter Schiff's been coming up in my feed a lot, and I've actually been agreeing with him, which I'm really worried about because I've been agreeing with like 2 or 3 things he said, and he said, "Wait, what kind of where does the SEC have the jurisdiction to change what's in the securities laws? Like it's an interpretation. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like this whole dealer trader thing. It's like all of a sudden, how many years later, 7 years, 5 years later, they're gonna change how this works? That's a little odd.
Yeah, well, on the Peter Schiff note, there's some economic things I agree with him. He's usually pretty accurate. Now his Bitcoin stance.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. I'm constantly annoyed by that.
So to make sure I understand your question correctly, was he saying that they should change it, or it's bad to change it regarding
Well,
crypto?
yeah, Schiff was saying his conclusion was like, where does the SEC get the jurisdiction to go ahead and make an interpretation? Like I'm paraphrasing, but how is it even possible? I mean, a lot of people were outspoken, but Schiff put out a couple tweets about that. And recently I've been retweeting him or agreeing with him, but he was basically saying like, where are they getting this from? They don't have the right to change this. Something's going to get changed, where rules are going to get set in. It has to be done by Congress.
Absolutely, and totally agree with him there. And this is where Hester Peirce had suggested the sandbox thing. Like, let's try to figure this out until Congress acts. Come in and tell us what you're doing. We're not going to take action against you, but be transparent on what you're doing, and we'll give you some advice. But we're not going to take action against you. We're not going to try to shut you down and put you in court and Wells notices and all that. That was the logical approach, but we know Gary Gensler is not going to do that. But he's out of control. Metal Lawman and I were actually talking about this, where he's acting like a king, right? That I can just do what I want and change things, but that's not how it works. The laws have to be abided by both parties. So
Yeah, and by an unelected bureaucrat, that's sitting in office. So there's so much, that goes along with that, when you kind of relinquish power, to the unelected. But a big part of this also, so we have a couple different layers that we have to overcome. We have obviously from a federal level and then a state level. So from a state level, there's a lot that can be done also. And so there's this, it's interesting. So I've always been trying to dig down and find more where there's legislation coming. But here we have over 80 bills spanning 26 states have been introduced just in the past month, like in January. So here you have California, New Jersey, Wyoming, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Maine. There's all these things that are going on right now. And some could be positive, some could be detrimental. Like California, what are they going to be doing over there? Here you have in its pursuit to establish a comprehensive regulatory framework for digital asset industry in California, the Department of Financial Protection recently sought public input on implementation of the recently passed DFAL, which is the Digital Financial Asset Law, as the department considers how best to implement this law. So now they've created a law, right? They passed this law. Now they're trying to figure out how do they implement the law. You'd think that they would, figure that part out ahead of time. Just like, I mean, it's crazy. It'll be critical to create a regulatory environment that protects consumers while encouraging innovation in the digital asset space. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what did California just do? California passes some law that we'd have to look at exactly what that is. And now they want to figure out how they're going to implement it. But what they're trying to do at the same time, while they're implementing a law that could basically destroy the innovation, they want to encourage innovation. It's so many things that are happening are just so irrational. They're doing it. All seems to be more reactionary than being proactive. Whereas the Token Taxonomy Act in its first iteration was being extremely proactive to help the space develop and grow. It was kind of that first step to say, look, we need to find a solution. It's here. Let's find a way to make it easier and less burdensome from a regulatory perspective and have a starting point. And that they thought a lot about the different rules that were on the books. the IRS code and, and all of that. All these others, I'm looking at New York, California, and they just seem to be extremely, extremely burdensome, and nothing positive.
What do you think about this? Jim D.
Like, there we go. That's a good one. I like that.
Wondering, he's waiting for the California legislation to make the peso the new state currency. I think that could, does that have
awesome.
any,
I think that's going to take off.
That could be there. And then we've got Jungle. Speaking of California, Jungle Inc. saying he's talked to Newsom. He has big plans for crypto. Newsom 2024. Maybe we can get some Newsom advertising money on the channel here. So, man, Jungle, you're cracking me up. You're too much, man. You're too much. You're killing it. And then we've got this.
We'll get some commentary on Rumble. I'll post here in a minute too.
Sell fingers Gensler. But so now the AMM was struck down, right? So we had a couple people remove. I know that Vet removed his, and also I believe Daniel from Casino Coin went ahead and removed his. What is your thought on this? Do you think this is a good thing to be able to pull out? Because I think we were like pretty close to the end to be getting approved. What are your thoughts, pro or con, on the fact that they kind of pulled it back?
Well, I am not fully caught up on it, but from what I've heard, there was some bug discovered, and that's the reason why they pulled back. You guys, I mean, I think it's like with any software launch, and you got to think of it as software, right? If there's bugs and there's this is why you have beta testing before you go into production, right? And if there's something that they see that needs to be addressed, then no problem. I'm for that. Launching something that's reasonably good versus having problems, and then you create more problems because when it goes into production, it's failing, would be more detrimental.
Let's kind of think about Flare too, because Flare did it right with the whole Songbird. Like, if you're going to hack the network, do that, because a hack in production would have been catastrophic. Would have sunk the whole. Right? So I know a lot of people got weirded out by that. Like, why are we doing that? But if you've been around development, you know that that's if you offer it out to the community and say, go ahead and break it, that's when you want to break it. You don't want to break it when it goes to production. I feel like, and so what I've already read, at least on X today, I don't know, I have to do some more research about it, but they said that the second version of that's already ready to go, and they got the bug fixed, or at least plans to fix the bug. But better to get it right. I mean, why rush something out? But do you think the community, Tony, has been a little bit overbearing with all the stuff going on around AMM?
Yeah, look, and this is the tricky part, and I don't know what's the solution. I feel like in other communities, there's not this. I want to make sure I choose my words carefully here.
Don't choose them carefully. Just say whatever's on your mind.
I think there needs to be more education around the XRPL, the features, and so forth, and how the steps that needs to be taken and kind of make it put in layman's term. And I don't know if Ripple has to do that, or I know there has to be some XRP labs or XRP association, right, where it's funded maybe by Ripple, and their job is education. And hey, you're XRP holder. Hey, let's show you how you can use that XRP versus just holding it, or what you can build and so forth. I think there needs to be that, and people rightfully are looking at the price. I'm not saying you can't do that if you're an investor. And I don't know if there's burnout because of the lawsuit or whatever it is, but there's always this emotional roller coaster, I feel like, with XRP versus other coins that I hold and other communities that I've seen. And I think maybe it's an education thing.
I think you hit something that's important. There is burnout, but I think there's burnout because there's so much expectation and anticipation. And, there's a lot of hype, but there's a lot of hype and FOMO and FUD that goes into every community. But XRP, the FOMO has been there for a long time. And that's what, 808 is talking about XRP as generational wealth. I heard that in 2015.
Yeah.
And then, we've had, the Riddlers and the Dancing Bears and, Vincent Wilson. And we had, all these different, 20,000 XRP. It'll be life-changing. It started at 10,000 XRP, then it was 20,000 XRP. It would be life-changing. And so we had all of this momentum and excitement, and then the lawsuit, ensues. XRP was moving with the market. The market's still a little bit sluggish right now. So I think there's burnout across the board. Even though there's momentum, it's not, bull market momentum yet. So
Well,
there, there's that. But then if Bitcoin is at 44,000, XRP, after it's declared a non-security, I think there was some anticipation to at least get it to $1, right?
yeah,
But it's not there.
yeah, but Jeff, you know why that is? And I think you brought up all this hype and expectation. Unfortunately, and there's just so much conspiracy theories and so much fabricated stories, and it's just ridiculous at this point. People are not paying attention to charts. People are not paying attention to liquidity. People are not paying attention to developers. It's, oh, the Fed is going to buy my XRP for $10,000. The most ridiculous shit you've ever heard in your life. It's like, what? Come on, man. Of course, people are going to get disappointed and so forth because you sold them this XRP and Ripple taking over the world, and every day you're talking about that. What are you doing? Like, that's I'm part of other communities with tokens, whether it be Bitcoin, Ethereum. They're not talking about stuff like that. Yes, you have the outliers and people who are like, Bitcoin's gonna do this and whatever, but it's not, a constant propaganda or narrative that's
actually doing it.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, what we see with the, Bitcoin. Give a shout out here to Davey X1. Good evening. Glad I'm getting back to these comments over here on Rumble. And so some of this is a little bit old, but Davey was saying all of a sudden they went from crypto is bad to let's speed up regulation, commenting on what we talked about before. John Doe, crypto adoption will be like the described coming of Christ. No one will know the time and place. I imagine it'll be a surprise to most people. Oh, there you go. There's a comment right out of the very biblical.
So the jungle too. He says it's kind of cool. The whole AMM debate played out in public, so people really kind of got an education on the process in real time. So that is one sort of nice thing about that happening, as far as it did play out. But everything's playing out in real time now. Everything's playing out with the developer community, and I see a lot of angst, here and there. I saw this right here. This was one of the questions we asked if anybody had something to question. Rob Licker said, Tony, I'm very disappointed, disturbed that, Ripple X Dev is blocking and banning large projects being built on the XRPL like Xspectre and XPunks, or from following them or participating in their spaces. What's up with this? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Wow.
I
didn't know about that. That seems strange. I mean, I'll have to look into it, but it seems on its face like very strange that they're doing that. Like, well, I don't know what's going on.
Are they blocking and banning Chip, or are they just not funding?
Here, let me pull it up. I'll pull up exactly the sort of here it was right here. Dirk from Xspectre put this up here. He was saying, "Hey, Ripple Dev, Bias Goose, Julian Berry," basically tagging people that are Ripple. In case you didn't know, there's other people building on XRPL. Pretty strange that Xspectre has been blocked by your tech community developer lead.
Wow, there you go.
Raising huge efforts to bring eyes to the ledger, XRP ledger. Fantastic things got built, and the massive community support. We start the initiative builders, #builders for builders. More info coming soon. Seems like you don't feel the need to support projects in the communities that have been building consistently, and you've always had the same teams in your spaces. So the criticism is there's so many cool things happening, but a lot of the spaces that go on around the Ripple X team, we've seen them. They're sort of the same projects that kind of get pulled in there. Maybe some, and what he was calling attention was, hey, check out all these guys talking about Zerpay and XRP bags and Zerpmon, which is a cool project, blockchain backer, the XRP, all these cool things that are happening on there. He's cool enough to mention, spend the bits, badass Yetis, XRP, like all this stuff, and none of them sort of kind of get the light. So I think it's kind of more of that that don't get it. And he sees David Schwartz, Monica Long, Brad Garlinghouse, it's Neil Hartner, it's just sort of everybody over there, and people over at Ripple. So I think it's more of a criticism. Oh, wrong button there. Jeez, Tony, sorry about that. But I think again, a lot of it's just a lot of built up frustration that's been happening, because I almost feel like when people when we were talking about the lawsuit, I was like, I don't know about Ripple. Ripple had nothing to do with it. It was all XRP. Now it almost seems like everybody's putting too much emphasis on Ripple. Ripple makes software that does cross-border payments. David Schwartz is very public about, hey, we kind of wish it would have got more adoption. It's kind of like his thing, right? But I want to know your thoughts on the whole idea of that. what's next for Ripple? Is it going to be tokenization? Like that was the first really use case they had, but what do you see coming down the pike about what really could resonate with a company like Ripple? And then what do you think about the builder community? Like what could go on over there?
Yeah, I absolutely think tokenization is big, and I think they're really trying to push that. Whether it be CBDCs, NFTs, and other real world assets being put on the XRP ledger. So I think that's the direction to go in, and I think the narrative fits it when you have Larry Fink of BlackRock going on TV saying the future of finance is tokenization, and after these ETFs, that's the big thing we want to tackle. So I think the timing's right. I think once again, keeping it real, I think Ripple really screwed up by not going or integrating smart contracts earlier. And we see what smart contracts are doing for the crypto market, and what has happened with Ethereum and the benefits it got from that. So they really, really messed up there. And in my recent interview with David Schwartz, he was talking about payments, and that in itself is a big use case. The problem is, and the challenges that they have faced is, it's hard to move these banks, right, which are stuck on the legacy system. It's going to take a long time. It's like trying to steer the cruise ship very quickly. It can't. It's just going to take a long time to slow, steady turn. And unfortunately, that slows down their adoption and their ability to earn off of that. Don't get me wrong. There are small payment companies, small banks that are using ODL. But it's not at the level I think they would like with the big banks. But tokenization is definitely a big one. And I think they have to lead, and I'm being honest here, be ahead of the curve and introduce new things where Ethereum is not doing it first, or these other blockchains are not doing it first, and then you're trying to catch up, right? Why didn't Ripple or the XRP developers do NFTs first? Why did it have to come from Ethereum and these folks, right? What can you do first ahead of time? I'm seeing Ripple trying to catch up to many of these things that are put out in the market.
That's an interesting point. That overall the XRP ledger, its primary use case being to move money, and the payment space. You're right; it's a very slow, tedious growth cycle. And overall payments, people talk a lot about using XRP to pay for stuff. But I'm going to use my credit card. I don't need to use cryptocurrency to buy anything. If I want to go out and buy something, unless I can use cryptocurrency private and have privacy connected to it, where they're overreaching and they want to intrude on everything I'm doing with my credit card. Or if you're in one of those industries where they don't allow you to accept credit cards, and that's a reality. And in those scenarios, if from a business perspective, maybe it's prudent to be able to accept other means of payment. Maybe PayPal is too expensive. So in those cases, having a crypto currency payment solution makes sense from a B2B perspective. But when you're looking at like big money moves, then it starts making sense as the behind the scenes solution to move millions of dollars. At the end of the day, most people still function and operate in fiat type currencies, whether countries end up moving to digital or not. So I think you're right. Their primary focus for Ripple as a company, again, it's Ripple as a company. What's the XRPL Foundation doing? What's behind the XRPL? So you have the Ethereum Foundation. Then you had, one thing that got Ethereum notoriety was the ERC20 tokens, right? And they just blew up. It was super easy, and all of a sudden they blew up. Why not XLS? The XOS 20? Why couldn't? To your point, why did they have to wait so long? Where's the development foundation of the XRPL? We hear about the validators, we hear about all that stuff. You're right. Why aren't they leading by example? Why are they now following? And as they follow, it's already too late.
Right.
Chip and I talked about, like, in the NFT space, we rolled out the badass Yetis. We have them on the XRPL. Working with XRP.cafe, the volume in all of any of the online NFT platforms for XRP is just a small percentage of what you're getting on all the others. Like, right. Solana You look at what's going on with a Solana, it's, transactions in a 24-hour period are like 1.5 million. You go over to XRP, it's like 15,000. The Ethereum transactions are massive. Ordinals, massive. And then XRP, where you would say it's easy. It was, it's not super easy to get it listed, but it's a lot easier process to put an NFT up on the XRPL than it was on the ordinals. Almost impossible. Solana is a little bit of a challenge. We're working through that now. And, going to the XRP was relatively easy. Why isn't getting mass adoption? And then there's no transaction cost really moving the XRP to buy the NFT like there is with Ethereum, but who's behind it? Where's the momentum? Where's the marketing? You're right. That part, without that, the space goes nowhere. And then that's why all the focus and attention keeps going to Ripple, because Ripple is growing their business. Has nothing to do with the XRPL and growth. It's about their business, their revenues, everything that they're going to do. At some point, ODL could get big adoption, and then there'll be big movement utilizing XRP potentially with ODL. But we need all the other development. Flare is going to do their thing. Do they really need XRPL to do what they're doing? So that's the question. And I think you bring up a solid point. And I haven't seen anybody answer that. And to see how they, how Dirk was treated with his and the X Factor, it's shocking to me, but I have a feeling part of that comes down to, are you ESG loyal? Do you believe in all the 3-letter pronoun algorithms of leftist political ideology? If you do, hey, you're in.
What I'd like to
it's crazy to me. Some of the projects are trash that they've supported.
Tony, something you brought up, like, so what do you really think the hooks, like, because really to go to a side chain, there's a lot involved, and it was a lot of work for the community to do that. So what do you really think is behind the hooks amendment not going through? Because that would, to me, even beyond, I know David Schwartz was excited about AMM. I know a lot of people are, but to me, you made a really good point earlier. That is going to open up so much, especially on the development side. What do you think was really behind that getting nixed?
I'm honestly not sure. And it's one of those questions I have. And I wanted to ask David about it, but they told me not to ask him about certain things. So I'm honestly not sure what happened there. And I've, to kind of keep my sanity, and I've stepped away from some of these situations. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Look, I'm instead of focusing, I'm kind of getting burnout myself, right? Because of all these things and back and forth and frustrations. And I'm now almost just focusing on the technical analysis. Okay, when is it going to pop off?
Right
on the charts? Because I can't mentally and emotionally be invested with all these things that are happening. So I've kind of stepped away, and I honestly don't know what happened there.
I wonder if they were worried about the maybe the unknown of what it could potentially do to the XRPL, because they've done a relatively good job of keeping the XRPL very clean and not, they talk about like, hey, want to do other stuff, we'll do a federated side chain, we'll do like, I think there might have been a real heavy concern about not knowing like it could have been a disastrous move in a way if it wasn't implemented correctly, but I also think too that it hinders a lot of stuff. Where do you see the builders going?
Right.
I would like to see more attention on the builders. Ripple's doing their thing, their software that they sell. I get what they're doing. Like they're a well-oiled machine. They're off. They're doing stuff. They're hiring. They're the only ones really been hiring in this latest climate of the last 2 years. A lot of people have been cutting back or laying off. But where do you see like the focus of the builders in the community of attracting people? A lot of people have left the chain and gone elsewhere because people are throwing. I know XRP said, and this happened to us. When we were working on our project, another chain came in and said, we'll give you all the support and everything you need. What do you need? How much grant money do you need? How much? They came to us and said this. We were talking to them about one thing. I'm kind of keeping this a little bit, but they said, what do you need? We'll give you whatever you want. We'll give you support. We'll give you this. And we were trying to say like, well, we really want to build the XRPL, and we couldn't get any support. Ripple couldn't and reached out to them like a brick wall. And I hear this, And it's not just us. It's throughout. It's pervasive. So it's like, if you're not going to give support, why have a Ripple X? If you don't give a crap, don't have a Ripple X. I get it. Just focus on your core business. But Tony, do you think builders have a shot? And if there's not going to be, they're not going to get the support that they need. I'm not talking about financial, just support.
Yeah. And it goes back to, the education, the community stuff. There needs to be like some sort of foundation, which is hands-on with this stuff and very proactive, and forms a more better community with developers and education and so forth. So I agree with you. That's needed. And I don't know.
Kind of a joke.
Yeah. And I'm seeing these things from other foundations, they're doing it. And look at Solana, right? Going down, having its problems, but they've got a lot of interaction with developers and they're doing a lot of marketing and all these things.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know I don't know who we get these answers from the folks at Ripple. I'll try to get Monica Long maybe on and see if I can hear about that.
I don't think they care. Honestly, I really don't think that the Ripple leadership cares about development in the space on the XRPL, because they need to focus on building their company. If they're not focused on building Ripple, who is? They have a lot to do to build out their platform, to then focus on other builders to build on the XRPL. But what they could do, and that's what Ripple X was supposed to be, they're at least funding that. Let the Ripple X team do something to build out. But, to that point, when, Chip's talking about, we reached out to them and said, look, we have a serious question. Here's what we're setting up. We need to talk to someone from a technical perspective. We have to understand how this is going to work. They're like, oh, put it at what they say, go onto Reddit.
Let's go to the Discord.
Go to the Discord and publish it in the Discord and ask. We're like, are you crazy? Like, we can't, put it out there in the public, ecosystem. We can't talk about it in public. We're reaching out to you because you guys are Ripple X. You're supposed to be supporting the founders and developers. Where is it? Ripple X Founder Fellowship. Where is all that? And I think there's something missing to it. They're not doing enough. They're not doing enough marketing. They're not focused on the development of it. They're not looking for founders and developers. Ripple is doing Ripple stuff,
right?
Not XRPL founder, X stuff for other people. That's an important part. However, it develops, builds, and man, I find it's interesting. Where we're at. Yeah.
If we had hooks, there'll be 3 developers worldwide that can build on it.
Right.
That's incredible. Anyway, listen, time's coming up. I know you did a lot to make this time frame work, so we really appreciate you kind of coming on here. And just like kind of like wrapping up in the final sort of thing, like I'll give you a final word, and then Jeff and I will, we'll close the show. But what are your final thoughts as we move into 2024, into February? We got a bunch of months going. What do you see like on the roadmap of XRP, XRPL for the next, let's say, calendar year?
Sure. So I am bullish because I think, XRP, to its credit, held up in the top 10 despite that lawsuit. And I think a lot of people thought it was going to be wiped out. It's going to drop down to number 40 or something, right? It held up, and after being delisted, it's now relisted on all exchanges. There's a strong narrative out there with Gary Gensler and people hating him, and the SEC losing the lion's share of that lawsuit. So I think XRP is going to do well. And I'm bullish, on Bitcoin and the entire crypto market. I think these ETF approvals are huge. It just has brought a ton of attention to crypto and the potential, and there's a lot more validation with the big names, some BlackRock and so forth. So I'm bullish. And then from the macro, which I've learned is a big influence on crypto, and that is money printing and global liquidity. They're going to start the money printers back again. All these bills and all these credits and all this tax cuts and all that. How are you going to pay for it? Raising the debt ceiling. How are you going to pay for all that? You got to print. So we're coming out of the QT era. We're going back to QE, and I'm excited and prepared to make some nice returns this bull market cycle.
That can certainly.
There you go. Look at that. It's white. What happened to my?
It's a blank piece of paper. It's kind of like what's going on with Congress right now. And all
That's right. That's the XRP chart.
There it is.
I don't know why it's not showing it, but
Yeah, it's like people are going like 589, this and that, $100, $10,000 buyback, and I'm like, can we just break $1 first? Can we just
but that's part of the problem, right? Why people get so disappointed and you have to go through the emotional roller coaster. Imagine someone telling you, the central, the Fed is about to buy back your XRP with 10,000, and then you're having all these. It's like the dichotomy between those things. Just think about that.
Well, there's some influencers out there that I honestly laugh when I see like one of the I go like, I get it, you want to get eyeballs and stuff, but I'm like, it's getting to the point where it's beyond preposterous. Okay,
yeah,
like it's just beyond. I'm like, let's just at some point, not one of the things you said over the last year happened or is going to happen. So, but people keep coming back for more. It's just bizarre, It's like that's one of the things I've always appreciated about you is like you always keep it real. You always ask. You're a great interviewer. You ask phenomenal questions. We always learn something that we might not have learned from another interview. So you do a really good job of that. Not to mention you've interviewed some really high profile people. So
top notch. Have you interviewed Jungle yet? He's right up there. And he's got some really good comments here too. I plan to buy the top and hold until the bottom of the next bear market.
That's hilarious today. He's killing it. Job. But no, Tony, hats off. Doing a phenomenal job.
Thanks, man.
We're getting the good interviews and stuff, and building your brand and building the channel. And, we always look forward to, and what I like too is I love when people will clip it. Somebody else will clip it and they'll send it around. So it's one thing if you clip it, it's like, yeah, this is but it's even more powerful when you start seeing your clips circulating little bits and pieces, they kind of go out there because it's a testament to what you're doing and the kind of the substance you're getting in these interviews.
I appreciate
Great
that.
job.
Man. Thank you.
Who's out of all the interviews you've done, who's your favorite?
That's tough, man.
Top three.
Whose show you've been on, because obviously on the chain, but yeah.
Top three, maybe.
Top three of who you've interviewed.
Michael Arrington, he's one of my heroes, and this goes back before crypto because I was following TechCrunch. I tried to build a blog, and I was very much into tech in Silicon Valley. So to get him was really cool. And that really made my day. And then, so I'll say that was number one. Number two, I would say the fact that I was able to get Brad Garlinghouse right after the lawsuit was mind blowing because I did not think he would say yes. That was pretty great. The lawsuit broke in December 2020 when we heard the news, and then Brad came on in January or February. So I was like, whoa, I don't know how this happened, but I'm thankful for it. Three, just because of the context of what was happening, Joe Grunfest, former SEC commissioner who served under Ronald Reagan, and he was also one I did not expect to get. And, he had sent a letter to Jay Clayton and all that. So it was like, wow, okay. I can't believe I'm talking to him, given all the things that are going on. So there's other big profile names, which like Kathy Wood recently. It's like, wow, Kathy Wood, right? But the context of those conversations and the timing were like incredible. I wasn't expecting to get them.
How did you feel? Though you're Kathy Wood.
I relate to Kathy a lot because we both love tech and we're both into tech and thinking about the future and how these things are going to happen. So I relate to Kathy very much in that way. I appreciate how she thinks. Regardless of how her fund performs, right? That to the side. But I like Kathy, and I can see that she's passionate about this stuff even at her age, right? And I can see myself being the same way at her age, just like, oh, what's the next cool thing?
What does that mean? Wait a minute.
She's in her late 60s.
Yeah, it's like 67.
She's 55 or 50, early 50s.
No, isn't she like in her 60s?
She's in her late 60s, I believe. I think she's like 67, something like that.
Is she really? Oh, I didn't know that.
I was always
wow.
I was shocked when I looked.
No idea. Oh, that's crazy.
I wanted to drop this that I also like Arrington a lot too, and I was lucky to have my startup in a startup that I had in TechCrunch twice. It was great because I was actually on business and I was visiting an office in California. They had a quote from TechCrunch, and I was like, little did they know that I've also been, it was actually a pretty cool thing. But sometimes you're too early to the market, and that was the case with the one the startup that I had.
Hey, here's a question for you. Tony, what's your favorite layer 1 smart contract blockchain after ETH?
After ETH. The XRP ledger, man.
Wait, that's not a smart contract.
No, I'm kidding. I would have to say Avalanche, I think, is pretty strong. From what I've seen, with the recent news of like JP Morgan using them to test tokenization and DeFi things happening, I think they're getting some big real world adoption. Cardano's solid too, but Avalanche, I think, got to have some momentum, and the partnerships are getting pretty big.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I hope that satisfies what you're thinking. But anyway, let's get out of here. Yeah. Tony's got life and things to do, but it's great having you on here.
Solana
as well.
And I want to make sure people know, like, because they see my tweets, right? Yeah. I'll tell you like it is, but I am bullish on XRP. So please, don't think I'm bearish. I'm not. I haven't flipped. I haven't become an ETH maxi, but I'm diversified. So please, diversify, guys.
Although it's getting close. It's getting very close to becoming an ETH max. The more we talk tonight, the more the closer he gets.
Yeah, please, and don't make tokens a religion. It's nice to have communities, but there's a difference. Don't put your emotions. If you want to make money, my goal is to get financial freedom. I'm trying to maximize, my money as much as possible, pay off debt, and try to retire early. So
I like that. And we're all looking at this XRP token. It's the most stable crypto asset that's out there, because when it hits its stable point, it holds that position for a long time. And that's a good thing though. You don't want the severe ups and downs, you don't want it's too much.
I like the $90 on. I like the XRP. I think we'd all be pretty happy there. But anyway,
when it gets there, it's going to stay stable for a really long time in that 90 price point. We're going to be like, when are we going to hit 100? Come on. When is it going to hit 100? That's going to be like 10 years from now. When is it going to hit 100? Come on.
Here we go. Anyway, thanks you guys for being here. Really appreciate you guys. We'll see you back here on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And we will be. Slovakia says hello.
Say hello to Slovakia.
Is in the house.
PB29, what is up?
Guys, that's all. Here, but we'll see you guys on the next one. Chip, Jeff, and Tony Edward from the Thinking Crypto Podcast on the chain.
Right. That's it. And if XRP goes to 0, remember it's Alex.
Whatever happened to
into this? That's strong.
Streaming, I'm like, dude, just let it ride a little bit before he starts streaming.
Yeah, stop it, man.
Yeah,
when it hits $5, come back on.
Yeah, maybe. Then write it down to the bottom, like Jungle was talking about there. So there you go.
Right back to 0.
Next one.
All right.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.